I am tired of all these streaming apps.
Oh my God, what's wrong now?
$10 a month, $20 a month, and if you get the no ads plan, it's suddenly triple.
Ugh, yeah, that hurts.
I just want to listen to music without worrying about costs, shuffle it, hear surprises, pay less.
You can.
Wait, what?
This.
Oh, wow, I forgot this song even existed. What app is this?
No app. That's 98.9 The Bull. That's called radio.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life. And that's what we come here every week for 1 hour to do. Take one small topic involved in building a better life, talk about it, flesh it out, discuss it, and see if it resonates with you. And we hope to give you some practical tips along the way that you'll find helpful in kind of building up your own better life, whatever that means to you. And there's always two of us doing this. There's me, JDK Winnikin, and of course there is the incomparable. She needs no introduction, and yet I always try to give her the best one possible because, frankly, she deserves it. Ashley Kniebel. Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good.
Well, that's good. That's good. It is, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, you can tell it's very sunny in our studio today.
I know. It's a beautiful day today.
I know. Another beautiful day. 2 weeks in a row we've had
I'm here for
beautiful days. I know.
And also,
what?
Well, 2 weeks in a row, I've noticed you're wearing the same shirt.
Oh, yes. If you're watching on the street, yes, it is. I am wearing my Seahawks Super Bowl champion t-shirt. I just decided to keep wearing it. I don't know. I might wear it through, like a month. I don't know.
Like
I'm not wearing it every
February?
day. I'm not wearing it every day, just so you know. I'm just wearing it
just for the
here.
viewers here. Okay.
Just for the viewers here, because, you got to show off a little.
Well,
right?
because we have viewers and listeners that are not just in this area.
I
So
know.
Obviously, he wants to brag.
I do want to brag. It's a flex. Yep. See, it says champions on it. Champions. Exactly. So anyway, yes. So I am wearing it 2 weeks in a row.
So, Sunshine and Seahawks.
Sunshine and Seahawks.
2 weeks in a row. Here we go.
I love it.
Oh, my gosh.
I love it. All right. Anyway, baseball season's coming, so I will move on to that.
Great.
Exactly. Because then it'll be Mariners, right? All right. It's a sickness. Here we go. All right. So, Ashley, how has your week been?
It's great.
Good. Well, last week we talked about something really, that you were going through, some personal realizations on some things. And first of all, thank you again for doing that.
You're welcome.
And I teased in that episode that this week we were going to talk about something on my side of the street, if you will. Something similar. It's like last week's episode, everybody. This one's an episode about adaptation, about losing a sense of one's own identity, and what it takes to reclaim, I guess, what we could call our baseline health. Right? Yours was kind of an emotional one.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a physical one with this for
You've
me.
been going through like physical ailments quite a bit.
I have.
Honestly.
And actually, that's part of the story. So Let me just get right to it. This is what we're going to talk about today. So I have mentioned on the air the last handful of months, I've been getting sick more often than I normally do over the last year or so. And that's been a little concerning, right? Because, all joking aside, I may not feel like I'm 52 years old. People tell me I don't look like I'm 52 years old, but the fact of the matter is my body's 52 years old. And so I'm trying to take steps to take care of it more intentionally than I used to have to when I was younger. And so I've been trying to do that. And listeners have followed my journey around fitness, around nutrition, and that's been ebb and flow. And in the last year, even that part has been more difficult. Right. And I wasn't exactly sure why until this past week or so, couple weeks, where I realized, because of some things that shifted, and I'll tell the story in just a minute, that I have been living for the last 18 months, really unknowingly to a certain degree, in a very, very highly stressful, high cortisol state. And I think that's been taking a significant toll on my health. And of course, on my physical health, but of course, there's emotional components, there's mental components, there's all of that. But I've been in survival mode for 18 months. And much like last week, Ashley, you were telling listeners that I was sort of the only one who had heard about some of these things. You're one of the only people who has seen this firsthand, has wondered about it. And yeah, I've been in survival mode, and it's really been that way for the last 18 months. 18 months ago, in addition to what Ashley and I do here and everything with our own company, we have other jobs, right? We're like many, many people, many of you out there, that you have the things you like to really do, and then you have the things that you sort of need to do to keep the lights on, right? To keep the fridge full, right? To, keep the family fed, all that kind of stuff. So we have that. 18 months ago, I was laid off from the nonprofit that I worked at. And unbeknownst to me, it was going to take 18 months for me to settle that down. But really, since then, I've been piecing things together, right? I do some coaching, I do some tutoring, I do bartending, as I've talked about, kind of stitching all those together. And we, of course, Ashley, we've been building our podcast development company, Speaking Current, which has been super fun, right? And continues to grow. But I've really I was really hoping to find something that would kind of anchor me a little bit more, right? Well, a couple weeks ago, I was given a new opportunity to consider that would do all those things. That would kind of help me settle in financially, give me a little bit more security as far as that's concerned, and certainly open up more bandwidth for me to do all the other things that I like to do, which sounds weird because my time is going to reduce, right, in taking on this new opportunity, but my bandwidth I know is going to increase for all the other things because I won't be in survival mode anymore. So let me give people an idea of what I mean by survival mode. When you are knitting things together, it is not just paycheck to paycheck. We hear that all the time. And a lot of people are paycheck to paycheck. It can actually be day by day, right? Where having to make choices over what am I going to spend my money on today? Is it going to be, do I get gas for my car today or do I get food for my table today? Do I need to stretch the next 4 meals into 5, right? Mm-hmm. How do I put aside money for the holidays, right?
Yeah.
For people's birthdays,
Right.
Those kinds of things. How do I want a gym to take care of myself. I have to pay for that, right? You just have to make a lot of choices. And every month for the last 18 months, that stress would pick up, particularly around the end of the month where I've got stuff to pay for,
Sure.
right? You got rent, you got all those things you got to do. And of course, I'm investing time and money in what we're doing, all those kinds of things, all conscious choices on my part and choices I was willing to make. That is not the story here. The story here, though, is once I was offered this opportunity, which will tell people about more in due time, once I accepted that, I suddenly realized I was feeling different.
Okay.
Okay.
Like how?
The day after I heard about this and was offered this opportunity, I slept so soundly and so hard for so long in a way that I haven't in forever. And when I woke up, I was ready to go back to bed again. Like I was exhausted when I woke up. I'd slept a ton, but I turned around and wanted to go back to sleep again. I was so tired, but it was a relief tired. It was, oh my gosh, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I felt relief. I felt excitement. I felt joy. I felt immense fatigue. But then right on the back side of that, as my energy started coming back, I started realizing, holy moly, I'm not stressed out to the same degree that I was. That's the only thing I could identify it as was stress.
Oh, interesting.
And so then I did what you talked about you did last week when you had this moment of like, what is happening here?
Mm-hmm.
I sat with it for a while and just said, okay, what is happening? What am I experiencing here? Because I couldn't name an emotion, which alarmed me at first. Because normally I can.
So usually JD can just, feel into himself and be able to just bing, and it comes out.
It's true. It's true, but it didn't happen here. It didn't happen quickly. And it took a little while for me to realize it, but the dominant feeling was relief at the time. But then I went, okay, this is what's happening. I am shocked, dismayed, and worried that I'm seeing I was at a high level of internal stress that had been so high for so long, it had become a new normal, that I didn't recognize it for as out of whack as it really was.
Sure.
And not good for my health in any way. There have been signs around this that my health has been adversely impacted by this. My sleep hasn't been great. With my schedule, my nutrition hasn't been as good as it used to be. My fitness hasn't been as good as it used to be. And fight, flight, or freeze, all three were happening at the same time on a regular basis without me recognizing it. in the forms of sleeping a lot or being distracted a lot or having so much to do that I couldn't figure out what to do next.
Sure.
Right. And sometimes I would just do one and go down the rabbit hole. Other times I would do nothing. And also not really sharing it with a whole lot of people. Now, Ashley, you knew some of these things going back and forth, but I had never connected the dots like this before.
Sure.
And so the feeling I had as all of this came through was like, oh my gosh, I have been putting myself in a really, really tough situation for my physical health and everything behind it. Because one of the things I used to really be excited about was even with all the challenges I was facing, my physical health was in tip-top shape.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Like only, how many episodes in was it when I started that you kind of really took on your fitness journey and it went in a whole different direction and you really, really leaned into it and leaned out.
I did.
And you got into such a healthy cadence and rhythm.
Yep. I was in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
At 50 years old. I was in the best physical shape, emotional shape, mental shape, spiritual shape I've ever been in my life. And then the layoff happened. And then suddenly, without me recognizing it, much like you talked about last week,
Sure.
you didn't recognize it happening. All of a sudden, it slowly crept up on me. And before I knew it, this is where I was. And while my fitness hasn't slipped completely off the rails, it's not where it once was.
Sure.
And so I've gained some of that weight back, which bothers me. And it bothers me even to admit it because I don't like admitting that kind of stuff. And yet I know how to get back. I'm working on it, right? Working with the same coach, working with the same people, working on my nutrition. So, but that was the thing. It was like, how did I let myself get to this spot where my stress level is so high to the point of it being a risk to my health? Because I'm 52, right? You and I both know people younger than me who have hit walls or worse. Right, with something like this. And I think there was a sobering part of this where I was saying, I am not immune to this. We all like to think we are, right?
Of course, it happens to everybody else, but not us.
Right. And all of a sudden I went, okay, what have I been spared from? Right? The timing of it. Like, what have I been spared from? 18 months is a long time. It's a really long time to be knitting things together, going month by month and having a number of occasions, honestly, where I was like, I don't know how to pull this off. How am I going to knit all this together? How am I going to make all this work? And that's, again, part of that was by choice, right? I've taken these things on, but I also applied for a lot of jobs after I was laid off. I applied for over 150.
Wow.
And never got a sniff. 150.
Really?
Yep. 150 with resumes, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Finding websites, finding employers,
Not
LinkedIn.
even just hearing anything back. Nothing.
I think I got 3 nibbles, and I think I had 1 preliminary interview and never went any further and never heard anything.
Interesting.
Some of that I think is because, and this is another stressor, some of it is because my age, right? 52,
Sure.
right? People want to hire younger people, right? And pay them less, right? That's a thing. Also, I have a unique skill set. You know, the fact that I have a PhD, I think a lot of times people get an idea overqualifies me for something, even though that may or may not be true. More often than not, I don't think it is. But there is that. And then just the way the labor market's been, right? It's been tougher to do that. So, and so all of that kind of came together and it was just really sobering and also really upsetting.
Sure. I mean, I would imagine a large handful of our viewers and listeners can relate to that because the job market has been so up and down for people over this last handful of years, especially very, very recently. But it is just interesting how you were kind of thrown into it, right? Because all was good and then you were laid off and you probably did not think it was going to go for the duration that it did.
No.
And so the first couple months are like, oh, semi-hopeful, like, right? Like, okay, well, this sucks, but, we'll find something. And then you got to hit that point where it's like, well, we haven't found anything yet, but I'm sure there's got to be something around the corner. This isn't going to go on forever. And then I would imagine at some point it was just like shell shock of like, no, this is actually my long-term reality and I don't actually know when this is going to end.
Yeah.
Especially after having putting out so many resumes and trying to go for interviews and not hearing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's exactly right. And I can pinpoint the first 6 months was a little better because I was eligible for unemployment. So I was getting some assistance and even some guidance, like you're working to get a new job, right?
Yeah.
But then 6 months runs out and you're like, okay, there's no renewals, right? So then, right then, and the people who know me best will look back, and I've talked to a few of them since I made this realization. I've looked back and said, yeah, it was a year ago. It was when all that ran out, it was when this all really started to, when you started to slide a bit, right? And that makes it sound like I was, careening off the rails. I wasn't. But the fact that I over time, ended up in a spot where I'm looking back and my body can feel the difference, right?
Well, and not even having worked in a new job yet. It was just the offering of a very stable, and this is a job that you have, like, I believe, connections or something there, right? Like, this is not just some random from a newspaper type of article thing.
This is somebody choosing to invest in me.
Right, yes. This was like a chosen, like, I see you and I would like to hire you type of thing, which is great.
It's amazing.
That has to bring some sort of relief of knowing that there's already a familiarity there that you're like, oh, I can walk into this.
Yes.
And I can take it on.
Absolutely. And
I'm qualified.
Exactly. And it's with people who see my skill set, who it is a shift. I mean, it's a new thing for me, but it's the skill set I need to bring is very much my own. And it's what's nice is that it is the result of many years of networking, right? This is somebody I've known for a long time. We've known each other a long time. We work in similar circles, and it just kind of came together at the right time, right? And I guess that's been part of it too, is like, how many more months of this could I have taken, right? 18 months is a long time. And a part of me is like, man, if this was 24 months,
I mean,
would I be in worse shape?
I would just
Probably.
go to say as much as you needed to.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because we are about resiliency and building better lives in this. And if anybody has learned anything, they know that JD is a very resilient person, because you have shed light on over many of our episodes of a lot of things that you've gone through in your past to get you to where you are today. And like you said, you've had some of your worst days that you thought were the end all, and you got through them. You're like, well, if I can survive that, I can survive. Yeah. And you did. And I think, I'm glad you're not having to anymore, but I think you could have.
I appreciate that. I'm glad I didn't have to go any further
than
I did. glad about that. Yeah. So I think that's what I want to talk about today.
Okay.
And a little bit about how that happens, and in that sense, also to point out, is something I mentioned at the end of last week's episode. This happens to all of us, right? No matter how much this kind of work you do or how many conversations you have, these things sneak up on us, right? Yes, it happens to Ashley. It happens to me. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. So we'll come back on Staying Power. Make sure you stay tuned for later in the episode. Our weekly segment will be coming along this week. It is a 2 minutes of terror, but that's not till later in the show. But come on back and we'll talk a little bit more about what happens when you realize you've been living in a high stress state and you didn't know it. Be back on Staying Power. See you.
Retirement can be scary, but only if you're not prepared. That's why AARP created thisispretirement.org. Because unless you've already retired, you're in pretirement, and you still have time to plan. Learn about retirement savings options, potential tax breaks, and how you can build savings over time. Visit thisispretirement.org for free resources to help you customize your action plan and feel the retirement fear disappear. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Going against the grain has never been this much fun. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
We're talking about how I ended up in a really, really high level of fight, flight, and freeze all at once for 18 months and didn't really fully appreciate it until I was no longer in it. And it's not just the lessons of that, but also how do we bring ourselves back? How do I prevent that from happening in the future? Because as you pointed out, this new opportunity is going to bring stresses, right?
Sure.
So,
figuring out how to regulate your new
Exactly.
Your new life.
Exactly. And see, I think the most important thing that I want to start this segment off with was I really believed I was handling things, you know? I really was. I told people I'm handling it. I'm making sure things are connecting. I wasn't talking to a whole lot of people about it. Some people knew a little bit more than others. You knew a little bit more than others. But it was just, and I felt this need. I got to keep moving, got to stay productive, apply for stuff, take opportunities. I actually had to take a moment where I said, you know what? I got to be willing to take on new things that I never thought I would take on, never need that. And hence I ended up bartending, right? And I've really enjoyed that actually. But that's been part of the stress too, because it's a really taxing job, right?
Yes.
On my feet for 10 hours a shift twice a week, going to bed 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning twice a week. For an old man like me, 52, that's rough, right? Now, I realize there's a lot of people out there who work graveyard shifts, that type of thing, and I have nothing but admiration for you. That at the same time, I don't know of a lot of people working graveyard shifts 2 days a week. Right? Anyway, nevertheless, I really thought I was handling things. I thought I was being productive. I was like, I'm being brave. I'm paving a new way for myself. Maybe all of that was true, but now recognizing my body is feeling it. I had another physical symptom of this. 2 days after all of this, I talked about sleeping.
Right. Excessive
Day after
sleeping.
that, my whole body was sore.
Really?
Yeah. I thought I was getting sick.
Like, not again.
Not again. Not again. Right. But my whole body was sore. And so I sat with this. Like, is it really what's happening? Am I feeling? No, I feel okay otherwise. And I looked into it. Dropping out of cortisol shock can feel like, you know, your muscles lose some of their chemical component and you get sore. You know,
Interesting.
a tightness in the body, like tightness when you work out, leads to that. Right. So there was that. What I realized was I thought I was working at about a capacity of 8 or 9 out of 10. It's more like at a 4. What I was used to.
Which is, I will say a testament to you, because I knew a lot of what was going on, but like you said, not everybody knew what was going on, and that's okay because it's not for everybody to really know how heavy and difficult some of those days were. But the fact that so many people really had no idea how difficult those days can be, it's kind of telling how much you were still able to carry and still handle and still maintain. And you figured out a way to regulate your new level of like insanity that you were at, which wasn't a healthy level.
No.
But even in it, you're like, okay, well, this is where I'm at. And when you finally hit that, 6-month mark or whatever, where you're like, okay, well, we're in it, and I don't know when we're getting out of it.
Right.
So what are we going to do while we're here?
Right.
Well, we're going to find a new job. And so you started bartending, and you found small ways, small little things to try and regulate the irregularities that you were dealing with.
Well said.
Is huge. Like, just to acknowledge that you did that
Appreciate
while everything's popping off and your levels are all over the place and your sleep is crap and you're getting sick and your health is sideways, and you still figured out how to get things going.
Well, it's true. But this is the interesting thing, though. And this is what I realized as I was looking into this, because you know me. I had to look into what was happening.
You did.
Right? I had to look into what's happening.
Let me look in the brain.
Exactly.
Like
the brain
Miss
and the
Frizzle
body.
over there.
Right. That's a compliment. I'm sorry. Okay. But nevertheless, here's the thing. Here's summarizing all the research that's out there in a way that's way too simplistic, but I think works really well here. Our bodies are really good and our brains are really good at adapting to pressure, and almost too good, because they can do it in ways that we don't recognize that we are lifting up our baseline. What we see is our base. Yes. Our bodies do this, and it lifts our baseline without us fully knowing it, right?
Tell me
It's
more.
a process. There's 2 elements of this called allostasis and allostatic load. Allostasis is the body's ability to maintain stability while going through change.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be nutritional stability as you're lifting weights and developing lean muscle, right?
Okay.
Body function. It can also be chemical output and chemical balance in the body as you're going through changes, right? Various things. Women can experience a process of this when they're pregnant and then going through the process of childbirth and afterwards. But allostatic load is what we call the wear and tear from chronic stress activation. So my stress level was chronically activated, for 18 months, meaning it was just there. Instead of like an up and down, up and down, up and down, that I was going to notice the ups and notice the downs, my upward baseline, because my fight, flight, and freeze response said, you must raise your baseline to survive, raised my baseline and made it normal in my mind, and my body just said, this is how we're normally going, right? So it's like, imagine an engine in a car that's a little bit of an older car that has to work at a higher temperature in order to operate. Right. And it makes more sounds and it's not as efficient, right? It's more pings and bangs and things like that. But that's what it's doing. But then imagine not knowing that it needs some repairs, not knowing that it needs some replacement parts.
Noises are just normal.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's all these things. And so I noticed the sore muscles. There was shallow breathing was a part of this, constantly kind of scanning my environment. What do I have to do next? What's happening here? What's coming down the pike? What's the next bill I got to make sure that I pay? Constant scanning rather than just kind of letting things kind of emerge as they were. Sleep wasn't great. My jaws would get tight. Text that, trying to soften all the time, right? And then the danger, and this is really the thing that I noticed the most. What ends up happening is when chronic activation like that feels normal, we start checking in with ourselves less and less.
Oh, interesting.
And I didn't realize that I had not stopped doing that, but I had really slowed down because I was just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And as soon as the next thing was done and got through, there was something else to pick up that was stressful.
So you feel like you were not checking in with yourself because you like didn't have the time to, or you didn't want to know what you were going to find out?
I don't think whatever answer to it is a conscious answer, but I guess yes, maybe. I don't know at this point. I don't know what that was about, but I know that when you're in survival mode and really in crisis mode, you are doing what essentially feels essential.
Sure. I mean, at that point, it's like, what is there to check in about? Exactly.
I'll check in later when I don't die.
Yeah.
Right? You're in survival mode, so you're just trying to get through something, right? It's, not to put it in overly dramatic terms, but, when somebody's on a sinking ship, they want to get off the ship. And so you get into the lifeboat or you jump into the water, not even thinking in the moment that that's going to present a whole new set of challenges. You're just trying to survive it. You're trying to survive that moment. So you jump out and into the lifeboat and say you survive the sinking, but you're in the lifeboat out in the middle of the ocean. Well, now what? Right? You don't think about that when you're trying to get off the ship, right? It's just then the next thing. And that's what this felt like. Again, that's overly dramatic example, but in my body, it didn't know the difference. And imagine feeling like you're on the verge of, drowning on a sinking ship for a long period of time some way. And the stories I was telling myself in retrospect, like, you got to get this right? You got to keep looking, you got to find something, right? You got to do what you got to do. All rooted in truth, but there was in retrospect, this urgency and the sense of emergency undergirding the entire thing that I think when I look back on all the things that I really thought I was enjoying, I'm not sure I was enjoying them all that much.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. My world got pretty small for a while. Like, I wasn't going places the way that I normally do. I wasn't going and seeing friends. Part of that was financial crunch, but part of that too was just not the bandwidth, right? And then work schedules came in. Moonlighting 2 nights a week at a pub, one on a weekend, you don't get a chance to get away for a weekend. Right? Even if I wanted to, because I needed the money. So all those things taken together just kind of brought everything up. And there was no reward in task completion, really at all. Finish something and just be like, oh, okay, because now I got to move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I would ask myself, is this thing going to be something that makes me money? And sometimes I'd be like, okay, I got to take that angle.
Sure.
Right? It was tough. And so what ends up happening, of course, in the brain is that the prefrontal cortex, what it's doing, does less. The amygdala takes over, the stress center of the body, tells the body it's under stress. You've got to give us everything you got. And that messes with your body hormones, that messes with digestion, that messes with sleep, all those things. Long-term thinking ends up shrinking. All those things kind of catch up.
How was it for you trying to maintain relationships with people and friendships and whatnot during this time? Like, since you said a good number of people really didn't like they knew, but they didn't know.
Mhm.
You know, like they knew you got laid off.
Yeah. How could they know what I didn't know? You know?
Sure. Sure.
How was it from this side of things? I don't think I was showing up nearly as well as I wanted to, and really thought I was. I know there are gaps in, I remember being there for friends and connecting with friends and feeling great about it. And then on the back end, when reality came back, quote unquote, and I remembered all the things I had to do, like all of a sudden that was distant memory.
Mm-hmm.
It was back to it. It felt like a short period of time getting away sometimes, but then with the reminder of, oh, I'm just back.
Did you ever feel guilty for doing that?
Absolutely. Absolutely I did. Because like, I shouldn't be doing this. I need to be doing something else to, even though I could tell myself intellectually, connecting with my friends is important for my health.
Right.
And it was, right?
Probably similar to like, oh, I want to have my gym membership because it's a place of supporting my health and it's keeping me active and it's a way to de-stress because I'm getting, exercising, sweating and getting some good endorphins. But then you're like, but I'm also paying.
And that's one of my community circles as well.
Right.
And because of my work schedule with the pub in particular, that was cutting into some of the time I had for spin class and things like that because I wasn't sleeping, right? Or I needed to be sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
If the classes were in the morning, I'm not making the morning class, right? Because so there was all of that. So it was just shrinking everything, right? And the other thing that this type of thing does that I know happens is it shortens long-term memory.
Mm-hmm.
And it shortens the ability to effectively plan because you're in survival mode. It's literally from one step to the other.
All your resources are just being channeled to that.
Exactly. And so that happened a lot. And I know there were times like where you and I would have conversations and you would be like, hey, what's happening with you? Because there's some things like, you'd be like, some things that I know you were talking about doing and you haven't done them. What's going on with that? And do you remember me struggling to answer?
Yeah.
It was like, just being like, yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
I do. And for the JD that I knew, that was very off-brand. Like, this isn't like you.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you're very on top of your things and you get stuff done and you're very organized and detailed and whatnot. So for just like the things that I had inquired about and was surprised in a way to get of like a no or an offhanded like, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot about that. It didn't fit the JD persona that I've always known, which there was curiosity there and sometimes there was some gentle prodding, but at the same time, there was an understanding of like, well, I think he's just doing the best he can do.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. I knew you knew that. And you said that as much, but I look back on it now going, oh man, yeah, I just did not have the bandwidth, with that. And that's something in the brain. Right. It's not and I was judging myself a lot for it. Like I'm having a hard time not judging myself for it now as I'm sitting here, but it's a normal part of brain function. Right. And then I went through the list. You should have heard when I put together the list of the body things, what it does, all of them.
Here we go.
Increased abdominal fat storage. Check. Higher blood pressure. Check. Insulin resistance. Check. Impaired immune function. Check. That was the most overt. Poor sleep recovery. Check. Right behind it. It's so funny. We used the term last week, eroding, talking about that.
Yeah.
Same thing. I wasn't collapsing, but I was definitely eroding, with all those things. And it was alarming to recognize that. And then to be like, okay, I felt like I dodged a bullet somehow. Like I had a moment where I felt like I shared with listeners a handful of months ago when I was in a car accident, right? Ashley, you and I were on the phone when that car accident happened.
Remember that?
And everybody who saw it and said, I can't believe you walked away from that, right? It was a pretty bad accident. And I walked away from it largely injury-free.
Yeah.
But I remember it was the only comparison I had to what this feeling felt like when I realized I'd been in this higher state for this long and wasn't aware of it. Was like, I just dodged a bullet. Like I just walked away from an accident that should have really hurt me or killed me, and it didn't. And so now I'm kind of in that spot, like post quote unquote accident. We're like, well, now what?
Right.
I need a new car, and what do I take from this? Like, what do I take from this if I've indeed have dodged a bullet? What do I do differently? Maybe that's what we need to talk about on the backside of the
I think that'd be good. I was going to say we should, we always do in our last segment is try and give listeners some little helpful ideas and tips and whatnot if they are going through this.
Yeah.
because I am sure there's still people out there right now that have been in an occupational lurch and looking for a job and, dealing with the stress and then trying to support themselves and maybe families and whatnot. And now that you've been onto the other side, having looked back, what would have been helpful, if anything, or just stuff for them to keep in mind while they're going through this.
Absolutely.
And we also have our weekly segment.
We do have our weekly segment on the back side of that. So when we come back from the break, let's do that. And then we're going to do exactly what Ashley just suggested. We're going to come up with some tips. Because I know you've looked into them and so have I. So, all right. So there's always light at the end of the tunnel here on Staying Power. So stay with us. End of the tunnel on this one's right after the break. See you in a minute.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Don't ask me to talk. There's a lot of talk out there. Political talk, sports talk, girl talk, trash talk, and so on. But there's only one, Don't Ask Me to Talk, helmed by conversational off-roaders and podcast pals Eric Ryder and Stacy Heller. They follow every tangent they encounter, from cultural blind spots to their infamous weekly Wheelo topics. Listen wherever you listen to your fave podcasts. Subscribe and share too. Or tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. or Tuesday at 4 p.m. on KKNW.
Working hard to put a smile on your face. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
We are talking about being in high-level stress and not really recognizing it, not really knowing what to do with it once you realize it. And we're using me as the case study this week. And
Thanks, JD.
Yeah, well, turnabout's fair play. It was you last week, so it's me this week. So before we jump back into that with some practical tips on how you can either prevent a similar state or pull yourself out of a similar state, let's do our weekly segment where Ashley and I each take a couple minutes to talk about something that happened in our week and share about why it mattered, all in the name of vulnerability, openness, and connection, which is really about building a better life. So here we go, 2 minutes of terror this week. Mr. Bill. All right. All right.
Oh, my gosh.
Nathan, our engineer, having a lot of fun with these drops. Okay. Ashley, what have you got for your terror this week?
It was a sad day. So my animals just need to calm down. I'll just be honest. This year has been a struggle already. So the other day, I was noticing my dear cat, Prince, looked like he was trying to cough up a hairball. And I was like, oh, cute. He's growing up. It's his first one. Whatever.
His first hairball.
Yeah, right. And he's like 2.5 and he's very hairy. And I was like, all right, here we are. Anyways, it wasn't going as planned. And I started to notice after a couple of days that something just wasn't right. And his breathing became really labored. And I'm like, this isn't normal. Took him to the vet. Of course, they're like, well, let's just run through all of the options of what it could be on a sliding scale so then we're not surprised after testing. And they're like, it could be asthma. It could be cancer. It could be fluid in the lungs. It could be fluid outside the lungs. And if there's anything like that, then we need to send him to a surgery place. And then you need to see a cardiologist. And I'm just like thinking, like, my little cat, like, he's just so young and this could be happening. You got to be kidding me. I just had Romeo's tail amputated like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, your sugar glider.
I'm like, here we go. Yeah. So, they take him away. They're going to do like a little CT scan and some x-rays. And now I'm bawling by myself in the vet's room. And then long story short, he has asthma.
He has asthma.
He has asthma.
I didn't know cat asthma was a thing.
Neither did I. And apparently for young cats, it can be a thing. So I've had to give him some steroids in pill form, and I've had to give him an inhaler like a human. And I am learning so much.
What does a cat inhaler look like? Do you have to like strap it to his head? Like to keep, I can't imagine a cat being okay with you putting something over his nose or his mouth.
Especially not mine.
Yeah.
So they do make this contraption, and I guess it'd probably be similar like if you had to give something to a small child, where there's like a little like mouthpiece, and then you attach the inhaler on the opposite end, and so they breathe it in. But my cat is like, not about it. So I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, kind of lovingly cuddle him and pry open his mouth and
spray it in.
And spray it in. And
is it working?
Cross my fingers. It has been working.
Oh, that's good.
So thankfully, it seems like we've gotten his little asthma under control here. But it was really scary for half a moment, and it was really expensive.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I have
and
had
really
enough.
Expensive. Yeah, that's its own terror. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, whew.
Wow.
So I've had enough animal terrors so far for the year.
Yeah, you've had your fair share already. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it worked out well. Okay.
He's
well,
doing all right.
My terror ties into what we're talking about today, because one of the first signs that I had that something was amiss, right? Recognizing that, I was at a different level. Something was going on. I felt like I was crashing out the day after this. I told you, like, I slept and I wanted to go back to sleep. That day, I felt so lost. And first thing I did once I was up was like, okay, I can't just stay in bed. I got up and I hopped in the shower, and before I knew it, I'm sitting there going, why is the shower cold? Because I've been standing in there the whole time and I ran out of hot water.
How long had you been in there?
I don't know. I just blanked out. I was just kind of like just standing there doing that. Yes. And then it got worse. I got out, got dressed, went to the grocery store to pick up groceries.
Keys somewhere?
No,
Okay,
no, worse. I picked up groceries. I went and I paid for them, right? And then walked out of the grocery store without them. And got back into my car and started driving down the road. It was halfway home before I realized I had literally not picked them up. And it wasn't like I wasn't going through the checker. It was self-checkout. So they were just sitting there. So I go back and the woman was like,
sir.
She was like, are you all right? And I was like, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm just off. So then I pick him up. I'm kind of embarrassed. I put him in the car, right? I start driving home, right?
Oh, no.
And all of a sudden I realize I'm not driving home. I'm driving to the pub. Not even anywhere close to on shift, right?
What? With your groceries in tow.
With my groceries in tow. And so, clearly I was not functioning very well.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was like, okay, I turned around. So I went home and put my groceries away. I actually went back to my car one time to check and make sure I picked up everything right. Yeah, right, exactly. And so then I was like, okay, what's going on? And so then that's when I really started to go, okay, I need to pull myself together here. What is actually happening? And that's when I knew something was off, and that was the beginning of the process. But yeah, it was weird. It was like my brain was short circuiting.
Wow.
Yeah. So if anybody out there hearing this can give me an explanation for how that worked with everything I'm talking about, I know it has something to do with, all the interactions of all the different things going on with me at the time, but that was weird. That doesn't happen to me. Right. And, I didn't know stress could cause like weird blackouts like that, but apparently it can.
Do you think that's how old people feel?
I am
like
old.
All the time. No, I mean like old, JD.
Oh, like way up in elderly? I don't know, maybe.
Way up in
way up in elderly. Is that what I just said? Way up
is that a country?
Way up in elderly. Oh, way up in elderly. You know where that is. Got to drive all the way to elderly. Oh, God. This is talk about off the rails. Here we are. All right. Okay, can we just transition out of this?
We can. Okay, well, I'm so sorry that was such a terror moment for you, but I'm glad that you have gotten past those moments.
Well, but in some ways to kind of bring this back into what we're talking about, in case any of you listening are wondering if this kind of thing is happening with you or has happened with you, stuff like that that's probably pretty extreme, right? It was the day after. It was a huge relief. I was so excited, so grateful, right? I think I was just overloaded and my body was just recalibrating, but there's some things like those behavior patterns that have become invisible to me. If any of these are happening to you, it might be worth thinking about. Survival mode habits include things like checking emails and messages compulsively. Yes. Hyperscheduling and then not being able to, keep follow through on them. Yes. Difficulty resting, over caffeinating, dealing with emotional numbness, irritation at small obstacles, right? As opposed to big ones, For me, like something clanking around in the dryer that I can't find can drive me insane at times like this, right? That's one of them. And then kind of a low level of dread. Of all those, if any of those feel normalized, there might be something there. And the short term, of course, your productivity can spike and then crash. You can't focus, determination lessens. And then long term, you're running the risk of burnout, cardiovascular risk, anxiety disorders, and depression. With my family history, I was worried most about cardiovascular risk, know, and that's a real thing. And so for me, that's going to be part of my response to all this is I'm going to get checkups on all that and see how my heart's doing and all those things. Decision fatigue can be another one, all that stuff comes up. All right. So how to prevent this or how to come back from it. Let's talk about that, Ashley, because this is where empowerment, similar to what we talked about with you last week.
Right.
What comes up for you that you think you could share that would be helpful for anybody?
Ooh, they're going through something like this. I mean, I would say try and find a real good baseline for yourself of like what you know is what you know is real and what you know is accurate and what you know that you can count on. And it might be like simple basis of like, okay, I'm alive. I do have a roof over my head. I'm somehow paying for that. And I do have some food in the fridge, this isn't like a total famine. There are certain things that I still have, despite the amount of stress I'm under. I still have my health to a degree. I still have the ability to be able to move my body. I still have abilities. You are not completely disabled and dysfunctional. And to try and find the small wins in those, because when you're fighting the battle of your body under such an attack like that, you don't want to give up, obviously, and you don't want to just surrender to it because it can completely engulf you and take you under. I think it's really important to try and find your small wins. Yeah. In them. Yes. However small they are, and it's not laughable. It's reality. It is. You have to. It is. And I wonder if I had been in a mode where I could step back from that survival part and go, okay, what's actually real right now? And an ability to be honest with myself or honest with another person, to vocalize it out loud. I wonder to what degree, even though I think I had moments where I was trying to do that, it was really hard to connect with all of it. And I think sometimes asking those, like you said, that basic question, what's actually true here? What is my baseline? One of the questions that came up for me in all of this was, when was the last time I really felt relaxed? Actually, I still can't remember the last time I felt really relaxed. And that, more than anything else, of everything else we've been talking about, is what has my attention. Sure. It's a very sobering thought. It is. I can't remember. Not just in the last 18 months, but even past that. Because, as longtime listeners know, I've been in a rebuilding, reshaping process for 14 years. Has it been that long? Has it been ever? Right? Because there was addiction before that. Right. And all the insanity of that. And I sure as hell wasn't relaxing in there either. So there is a part of me, and this is hard to say out loud, but there is a part of me that wonders if I've ever fully relaxed. So that might be worth exploring. It might be, particularly if somebody wants to send me to try it on a beach somewhere, right? Actually, I'm going to have the chance to do that with this new opportunity. I'm going to have a chance to take vacation. Okay. Exactly. Good. So I'm going to need to do that. All right. So that's a good one. So that's kind of like stress literacy you're talking about. Like, what am I actually doing? Yeah. Right. What else? Oh, there's the basics, right? Like, I always talk about breathing, of course, but like being outside, what are those things? I have to reconnect with those. You mentioned not too long ago, was it either earlier today or was it last episode, talking about going to movies by yourself, like doing things. I love doing stuff like that. Well, and I would suggest for people, especially if you're trying to like watch your funding and whatnot, because movies are great, but movies are also expensive nowadays, is, if you can feel like you can allow yourself to laugh without feeling guilty, there is so much comedy you can watch on YouTube. Oh, there's so many funny things you can find online, because laughter truly is good for the body. It is. And while it may feel weird being like, how can I even dare laugh and relax given what's going on in my life right now? Like, I don't have time for that. You do. And there's a lot of hilarious free content out there that costs nothing, but it can really feed back into your soul, especially if you have somebody else that you can watch it with or share it with, laugh about it with another person. You tell me, but I feel like that would be a little bit of light in a really chaotic situation. Yes, very much so. Laughter is great, and particularly intentionally that way.
you know, and for me, connection with other people is so huge.
Yes.
Right. It is so huge. So that's one of them. I mean, there's other things too, like going through your regular day. You know, research shows this 60 seconds of slow breathing before you have a meeting or something like that.
Always the breathing.
One thing I started doing not too long ago is I started eating meals without having my phone nearby. I just started like focusing on the food I was eating.
Does that include your Apple Watch?
Yes, it does. It does. Take it off, put it over somewhere, knowing I can come back to it. I've done that with my dinners recently, and that makes a huge difference. There's something about that intentionality of being, particularly when I cook something, right, is something like that. That's a big one. Those micro efforts, right, that are really small can add up over time. And so that's what I heard one of my old coaches in my ear with all of this saying, small things, practice small things in small moments so that when bigger moments come, you've developed some practice. So things like that. For me, getting outside and movement is key. I already know that about myself. So engaging that. I
mean, I think that's actually a really important thing, because when we are souls living in a body, right? And the body does its best possible effort to support us. And if you are now thrown in a situation where it's causing all this chaos within your body, you are now creating normalization that your body did not agree to and didn't ask for, right? And is now trying to regulate. So if you can remember, even in moments when you don't feel like it, of like taking care of your body also, in like the exercise, going for walks. I'm not talking about like killing it at the gym, but like going for a walk outside, getting some fresh air, getting some good oxygen if it's sunny outside or whatnot, you know, like grounding yourself with the grass on your feet in the morning, you're breathing, eating well, making sure you're choosing water, not alcohol, like things that will at least baseline support the thing you're living in that is under a deliberate attack because of your cortisol levels, like through the roof. Will actually probably go much further than you may be able to see or feel. But it might be the one thing that helps carry you through without realizing it.
You know, it's funny. You chuckle at all the research stuff I pull together, and that's exactly what all the research talks about.
Really?
Is exactly that. Yeah, it's the way to avoid that normalization trap, if you will, right? Because adaptations in life matter. You have a loss. You have a loss of a job. You know, death in the family, end of a relationship. That is going to require adaptation, and the body, like I said earlier, the body can do it and do it almost so well that it can become normalized really quickly. But adaptation is not meant to be permanent. It's meant to adapt and then integrate into something that ideally is a healthier version of what you were doing before, or an improved version, or a more integrated version, a more holistic version. That's what it's meant to do. It's not meant to just stay there. And I think in retrospect, that's probably one of the things I'm going to pull from this the most. I had a very open-ended adaptation going on, right? Without fully being aware of that. And in retrospect, if I could go back and say, all right, I'm going to do this for another 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, I am just going to shift. I'm not sure what it's going to look like, but I'm going to shift. That might have done me a little bit more good than just this kind of open-ended thing, which was tough.
Wow. How do you feel? Shared a lot.
I did, but I feel good. Good. Hopefully it was made a lot of sense to everybody. And if you're in that spot or wondering if you are, pay attention to that. We certainly would love to hear from you. I'm happy to talk to you about it. You can find us at stayingpowershow@gmail.com or in the show notes at any of the following places: on our YouTube channel, Staying Power Show, at wherever you get your podcasts. That could be on Spotify, it could be Apple Podcasts, it could be at our radio home, 1150 AM KKNW. All those places, you can reach out to us through those platforms, and we would love to hear from you, hear your own experiences, hear your own stories, hear your own thoughts, and maybe we'll end up discussing them on the air because, you and I aren't afraid to discuss.
We're not afraid.
We are not. So thank you, Ashley, for rolling through that with me. Thank you to all of you for listening to this episode. We will be back next week with another discussion of life, and we look forward to seeing you then. I am JDK Winnigan.
And I am Ashley Knievel.
We will see you soon.
Bye.
Go Seahawks.